Love does not ask for age, permission, or public approval. When younger men fall into relationships with women decades older, the collision between power, fame, and judgment becomes impossible to ignore. In this video, we break down each real story with clear timelines, exact age gaps, and very different endings that may change how you see love forever. Before we begin, tell me where you are watching from and what time it is where you are. Cher was born in 1946, a name that has survived more eras of fame than most careers ever touch. She became famous in the 1960s, reinvented herself through music, film, fashion, and controversy, and remained visible long after her peers faded. By the time the world entered the 21st century, Cher was no longer just a performer. She was an institution. A symbol of independence, control, and survival in an industry that rarely forgives women for aging. Alexander A. Edwards was born in 1987, 4 decades later, into a completely different cultural rhythm. He built his reputation behind the scenes in the music industry, working as a producer and executive, closely connected to hip-hop culture and modern pop networks. His career developed away from the spotlight, shaped by collaboration rather than celebrity worship. Long before his name reached headlines, he was known within industry circles for his connections and quiet influence. Their worlds collided at Paris Fashion Week in 2022. The setting was symbolic. Fashion had always been Cher's natural territory, a space where age blurred and reinvention was expected. When the two appeared together, the reaction was immediate and loud. A 40-year age gap triggered disbelief, jokes, and suspicion. Many assumed the relationship was temporary, performative, or strategic. Few believed it would last beyond a season. The public response followed a predictable pattern. Headlines focused less on who they were together and more on the number between them. Commentators questioned motives. Some framed the relationship as a rebellion. Others treated it as a curiosity. The idea that Cher, well into her 70s, could still choose freely unsettled people more than the age gap itself. Cher addressed the situation directly in interviews. She described the relationship as easy, joyful, and unexpectedly natural. She rejected the idea that love should expire at a certain age or follow rules written by outsiders. She spoke openly about attraction, laughter, and companionship, emphasizing that connection mattered more than approval. Her tone was calm, almost amused, as if the criticism felt outdated to her. Throughout 2023 and 2024, the couple continued to appear together publicly. They attended red carpet events, fashion shows, and industry gatherings. They traveled openly, shared moments of affection, and showed no effort to hide or defend themselves. Rather than retreat under pressure, they leaned into visibility, presenting themselves as relaxed and aligned. Their dynamic appeared grounded in friendship as much as romance. Observers noted how often they laughed together, how unforced their interactions seemed, and how little they reacted to outside noise. A. Edwards did not attempt to compete with Cher's legacy. He existed beside it, comfortable in her shadow, adding his own energy without challenging her authority or independence. By 2025, the relationship remained intact. They continued appearing at major public events, confident and unbothered. No dramatic statements. No defensive explanations. Just presence. In a culture obsessed with timelines and expiration dates, their relationship stood as a quiet contradiction. This story is not presented as a fantasy or a provocation. It is a documented relationship between two adults at different stages of life who chose each other despite expectation. It shows how power, age, and desire intersect in ways that still make society uncomfortable. And it forces a simple question to linger without asking it out loud. Why does this still shock us? Vivienne Westwood was born in 1941, a designer who did not simply follow fashion but rewrote its rules. She emerged as a central figure of British punk, then transformed herself repeatedly, moving from rebellion to historical tailoring, political activism, and cultural provocation. By the time she reached international dominance, she was already seen as untouchable, uncompromising, and decades ahead of the industry around her. Andreas Kronthaler was born in 1966, 25 years after Vivienne, into a different Europe and a different creative climate. He entered fashion not as a provocateur but as a student, curious, experimental, and searching for structure. In the late 1980s, their paths crossed in Vienna, where Vivienne was teaching and Andreas was enrolled in her fashion course. At first, the relationship was clearly defined. Teacher and student. Mentor and apprentice. Vivian immediately recognized his talent. Andreas absorbed her worldview quickly, not just learning techniques, but understanding fashion as language, resistance, and narrative. What began as instruction slowly deepened into intellectual partnership. Their conversations moved beyond the classroom into philosophy, politics, and art. Over time, the power imbalance shifted. Andreas was no longer only learning. He was contributing. The age gap became visible as their bond grew stronger. In fashion circles, whispers followed them. A legendary designer and a young Austrian student forming a personal connection unsettled traditional expectations. Yet within their shared creative space, age seemed secondary. What mattered was vision. Curiosity. Obsession with form and meaning. In 1993, Vivienne Westwood and Andreas Kronthaler married. The decision surprised many but clarified everything. From that moment, their personal and professional lives became inseparable. Andreas joined her label formally, and the brand entered a new phase. Punk roots remained, but collections grew more complex, blending historical silhouettes with radical messaging. Andreas pushed experimentation. Vivienne sharpened ideology. Together, they built a fashion house that refused to soften with age. For more than 3 decades, they worked side by side. Runway shows became manifestos. Clothing became commentary. Their partnership was not romantic in the traditional sense presented by tabloids. It was rigorous. Demanding. Built on constant dialogue and challenge. Andreas often described Vivienne as his greatest influence. Vivienne spoke of Andreas as her creative equal. Their relationship demonstrated how an age gap could dissolve inside shared purpose. Vivienne did not slow down with time. Andreas did not attempt to modernize her out of relevance. Instead, they expanded together. Sustainability, anti-consumerism, and political protest became central to the brand's identity, long before they became industry trends. In 2022, Vivienne Westwood passed away. Her death marked the end of an era, not only for fashion but for a partnership that had defined her later life. Andreas did not retreat. He stepped forward. He inherited responsibility, not just ownership. The task of preserving her legacy without freezing it in time. Following her passing, Andreas took creative leadership of the brand. Collections were presented as tributes rather than imitations. Archives were revisited. Messages refined. Vivienne's voice remained present, but Andreas's hand was visible. Calm. Respectful. Focused on continuity rather than reinvention. Their story is not framed as scandal or provocation. It is a long-documented partnership built on mentorship, love, and relentless creative discipline. A relationship where age difference existed, but purpose dominated. Where legacy was not inherited by chance, but earned through decades of shared work and shared belief. Sam Taylor Johnson was born in 1967, already an established visual artist and filmmaker when her path crossed with Erin Taylor Johnson. She was known for her sharp eye, emotional restraint, and control behind the camera. By the late 2000s, she was transitioning from art and short films into major narrative cinema, carrying authority earned through years of work. Erin Taylor Johnson was born in 1990, more than 2 decades younger. He entered acting as a child and grew up inside the industry, moving carefully from television into film. By the time he was cast in Nowhere Boy, he was still a teenager, talented but largely unformed in public perception. The film, shot between 2008 and 2009, placed him in the role of a young John Lennon, demanding emotional depth beyond his age. They met on set. The environment was professional, structured, and intense. Sam was directing. Erin was 19 years old, focused on performance, discipline, and learning. Their connection developed quietly, away from spectacle. It was rooted in trust, shared focus, and long hours of collaboration. There was no public announcement at first. When the relationship became known, the reaction was immediate and divided. A 23-year age gap dominated the conversation. Critics questioned power dynamics. Commentators debated ethics. The focus shifted rapidly from the work itself to the nature of their bond. For many observers, the discomfort was less about the individuals involved and more about reversing a familiar pattern. An older woman. A younger man. A relationship formed inside a professional hierarchy. Sam and Aaron did not engage with the noise directly. They continued working. In 2012, they married. The decision was presented without justification or explanation. Soon after, they built a family together and welcomed 2 daughters. Their private life remained largely protected, despite constant public curiosity. Professionally, their collaboration continued. Sam directed multiple projects in which Aaron starred. Each time, scrutiny resurfaced. Each time, the work spoke instead. Aaron's career expanded beyond their partnership. He moved into major action films, independent dramas, and award-recognized performances. Sam continued directing, maintaining her visual identity and authorial control. They addressed the age gap only when necessary. Their responses were consistent. Mutual respect. Emotional balance. Stability. Aaron repeatedly stated that he felt grounded, supported, and understood. Sam described their relationship as equal, built on communication rather than hierarchy. Neither attempted to reframe the narrative. They simply refused to perform discomfort for public consumption. Over time, the controversy softened. The relationship did not fracture under pressure. It aged forward. Appearances together showed ease rather than tension. Interviews reflected alignment rather than defensiveness. Their marriage outlasted predictions, cycles of outrage, and shifting cultural debates. By 2025, Sam Taylor Johnson and Aaron Taylor Johnson remained together. Their family life was intact. Their careers continued independently and in parallel. Aaron's name entered discussions around major franchise roles, including speculation about future iconic characters. Sam's work remained deliberate and selective. Their story challenges assumptions about agency and longevity. It does not present itself as a lesson or an exception. It exists as a documented partnership that began under scrutiny and persisted without spectacle. A relationship shaped by work, timing, and choice rather than approval. What do you think? Does a large age difference make a relationship more complicated, or does it stop mattering when both people are genuinely aligned in content? Heidi Klum was born in 1973, already a global figure long before this chapter of her life began. She built her reputation in the 1990s as one of the most recognizable supermodels in the world, then expanded into television, business, and production. By the late 2010s, she was not only famous but structurally powerful, hosting major shows and shaping careers through platforms like Germany's Next Top Model. Tom Kaulitz was born in 1989, 16 years younger, into a generation that experienced fame early and intensely. As the guitarist of the band Tokyo Hotel, he reached international recognition while still a teenager. Years of touring, media attention, and fan obsession shaped him quickly, leaving him experienced but guarded. By the time he met Heidi, he was already familiar with the pressure of public life. They met in early 2018 through mutual connections linked to Germany's Next Top Model. The first interaction did not take place on a red carpet or inside a staged media moment. It was informal and private. Heidi later described the conversation as natural and calm. Tom, despite his age, did not approach the relationship with awe or hesitation. Both recognized familiarity in each other's relationship with fame. When they appeared together publicly later that same year, the reaction was swift. A 16-year age difference immediately framed the narrative. Headlines focused on numbers rather than behavior. Observers speculated about imbalance, longevity, and intention. Yet visually, the couple presented something unexpected. Ease. Laughter. Physical comfort without performance. Heidi did not attempt to downplay the age gap. She addressed it openly, stating that happiness felt simple and unforced. Tom remained quieter, but his behavior spoke clearly. He appeared present, affectionate, and unbothered by commentary. Unlike many public relationships, neither leaned into defensiveness or explanation. In 2019, they married in Capri. The ceremony was intimate, followed by a relaxed celebration. The event was not framed as spectacle but as confirmation. From that point forward, their relationship shifted from curiosity to continuity. They blended daily routines, travel, and work schedules with visible ease. Their marriage unfolded publicly through social media rather than interviews. Photos showed vacations, backstage moments, family gatherings, and playful exchanges. Heidi's children were included naturally, without narrative tension. Tom integrated without disruption, presenting himself as partner rather than accessory. The image was consistent, balanced, unforced. Public perception evolved over time. Initial skepticism softened into acceptance. The relationship did not fracture under attention. It normalized. Fans responded to the absence of drama more than declarations of love. There were no public disputes. No cycles of separation and reconciliation. Just presence. Professionally, both continued independently. Heidi maintained her television empire. Tom continued music and creative projects. Neither reshaped their career to accommodate the relationship. Instead, they supported each other without merging identities. By 2025, Heidi Klum and Tom Collins remained together. Their marriage appeared stable, affectionate, and grounded. The age difference remained a fact, but no longer the focus. What stood out instead was consistency. A relationship that did not ask to be understood, only observed. Their story raises a simple tension. When age is removed from the equation, what remains is alignment, rhythm, and choice. Some relationships collapse under scrutiny. Others continue quietly until the noise fades. What do you think? Does a significant age gap create unavoidable imbalance, or can shared experience and emotional clarity make it irrelevant when both people are genuinely at ease? Emmanuel Macron was born in 1977, raised in a provincial French family that valued discipline, intellect, and ambition. Brigitte Macron was born in 1953, a literature teacher and theater director rooted in academic tradition. Their age difference was 25 years, but the defining element of their story was not the number. It was timing. They met in Amiens when Emmanuel was still a high school student. Brigitte taught literature and supervised the drama program in which Emmanuel participated. At that stage, the relationship was framed by structure and authority. Teacher and student. Mentor and pupil. Emmanuel stood out early for his intellectual intensity and emotional confidence. Brigitte recognized his talent, particularly his sensitivity to language and performance. As Emmanuel advanced through his studies, their bond deepened. The connection was intellectual first, built on conversation, shared texts, and creative work. In a conservative social environment, the closeness raised questions. Rumors circulated. Parents intervened. Emmanuel was sent away to Paris to complete his education, partly to distance him from the situation. Distance did not dissolve the connection. Communication continued. When Emmanuel turned 18, he reportedly told Brigitte that he intended to marry her one day. The statement shocked both families and reinforced the controversy surrounding them. At that point, the relationship moved from speculation to inevitability. French society reacted sharply. The age gap combined with the circumstances of their meeting created discomfort across political, educational, and cultural lines. Critics questioned ethics. Supporters emphasized consent, time, and autonomy. The debate never fully disappeared, but the couple did not retreat. Brigitte was married at the time to another man and had children. Eventually, she divorced her husband, a decision that intensified public attention. The separation was followed by a period of transition, during which Emmanuel continued his studies and began his professional ascent. Their relationship endured quietly, without public performance or explanation. In 2007, Emmanuel and Brigitte Macron married in a modest ceremony. The event marked the formal beginning of a partnership that would later become inseparable from modern French politics. At that time, Emmanuel was still relatively unknown outside elite circles. Brigitte stepped fully into the role of partner, advisor, and emotional anchor. As Emmanuel's political career accelerated, Brigitte became a constant presence. She accompanied him through campaigns, speeches, and negotiations. Her background in education and theater influenced his communication style. Observers noted her role in refining tone, posture, and rhetorical clarity. She was not an ornamental figure. She was involved, attentive, and strategic. When Emmanuel became president of France, the age gap re-entered public discussion on a global scale. International media revisited their history. Memes circulated. Criticism resurfaced. The couple responded with consistency rather than confrontation. They emphasized respect, loyalty, and shared purpose. Brigitte assumed the informal role of First Lady without seeking political power. She focused on education, disability advocacy, and social initiatives. Her visibility was controlled and deliberate. She supported Emmanuel without overshadowing him. Their dynamic appeared structured and stable. By 2025, Emmanuel and Brigitte Macron remained married and publicly aligned. Their appearances reflected familiarity rather than performance. The controversy never vanished entirely, but it no longer defined them. What remained was a partnership that had survived scrutiny, time, and transformation. Their story stands apart from celebrity narratives. It exists within institutions, laws, and national memory. It challenges comfort more than expectation. Not because of spectacle, but because it forces society to confront how it defines agency, power, and legitimacy across age and role. Kylie Minogue was born in 1968, already a global pop icon long before this relationship began. Decades of success, illness, recovery, and reinvention shaped her public image and private resilience. By the mid-2010s, she was in a period of rebuilding, both emotionally and creatively, when she met Joshua Sass. Joshua Sass was born in 1988, 20 years younger. He was a British actor gaining attention through television work, energetic, charismatic, and still early in his career. They met in 2015 on the set of a television series. The connection formed quickly. Public appearances followed soon after, marked by optimism and visible affection. The age difference immediately framed the narrative. Media coverage leaned toward curiosity rather than hostility, but the imbalance was noted. Kylie spoke openly about happiness and renewal. Joshua appeared devoted and supportive. In 2016, they became engaged. Headlines framed the moment as a late-life fairy tale, a second chapter filled with promise. Behind the public image, tension developed. Reports later suggested that trust became fragile. In 2017, the engagement ended. Allegations of emotional involvement with another actor surfaced around Joshua, though details remained controlled. Kylie confirmed the breakup without spectacle. Her response was restrained, but the impact was clear. The separation carried emotional weight. Kylie later described the experience as painful but clarifying. The relationship ended not because of age alone, but because of misalignment and breach of trust. After the breakup, she withdrew from public romance and redirected her energy into music. New albums and tours followed, reinforcing her independence and longevity. Joshua continued acting with less visibility, his career moving forward quietly. This relationship illustrated a fragile outcome. Age difference did not destroy it, but it failed to protect it either. Timing, expectation, and trust proved decisive. It became an example of how visibility can magnify vulnerability, especially when personal rhythms do not align. Sarah Paulson was born in 1974, known for her intensity, discipline, and emotional intelligence as an actress. Holland Taylor was born in 1943, with a long and respected career across stage and screen. Their age difference was 31 years, one of the largest in this collection. They publicly confirmed their relationship in 2015. Unlike other cases, the response carried layered meaning. An older woman paired with a younger woman challenged multiple norms at once. Gender, age, and sexuality intersected in a way that felt quietly radical rather than confrontational. Their connection was described as intellectual and calm. It developed through admiration and conversation rather than spectacle. Sarah spoke of Holland's wisdom and clarity. Holland described Sarah as grounding and joyful. They avoided dramatic presentation. Their relationship unfolded slowly and deliberately. Within the LGBT community, the pairing carried symbolic weight. It represented visibility without provocation. Longevity without apology. They did not frame themselves as activists, yet their existence expanded representation. Public reaction softened quickly, shifting from surprise to warmth. They built stability through privacy. Appearances were selective. Language was careful. Support was mutual but not performative. Careers continued independently. Neither redefined themselves around the relationship. They simply coexisted with consistency. By 2025, Sarah Paulson and Holland Taylor remained together. Their bond appeared settled, affectionate, and intact. Time did not dilute it. Attention did not fracture it. The age gap remained visible but no longer central. Placed side by side, these two stories complete the spectrum. One relationship ended under strain. The other endured through alignment. Together, they show that age difference is not a verdict. It is a condition. Outcomes are shaped not by numbers, but by trust, timing, and the ability to grow in the same direction.